The lights are off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on and he missed the complete. He's crazy.
Side Freitas is on the grass on the infield before. He slides through. He tags Richard Eck.
What does LionHeart mean? They line up 33 strong in his name. The drivers will compete on the most grueling road and oval tracks iRacing has to offer. And they all strive for one goal: to become champion. We'll witness which driver can push their car to the limit and find victory lane. You're watching the premier American Open Wheel Series on iRacing. The LionHeart IndyCar Series presented by Overdrive Graphics starts now.
Good evening, sim racing fans, live from the Golden State along America's Pacific coastline on the Global Sim Racing Channel. Tonight is round 4 in the 18-week-long 2015 Season 2 Championship with the LionHeart IndyCar Series presented by Overdrive Graphics, the premier online American Open Wheel Championship. Welcome to the GSRC Sonoma 75. As always, GSRC's Joe Peak with the intro getting us rocketed in the broadcast booth, keeping us rolling tonight alongside myself, Evan Pasoko, joined by Sean Ambrose, and our director this evening is Amjad Yamid. A lot rides on the line tonight into our first road course event on the season. Not only is that in a big storyline, rather, in and of itself, but when the checkered flag flies tonight, the top 20 in points that we have been taking from last season's results going to start to come from these last 3, and including tonight 4 races. So many drivers, Sean, many regulars that we have seen in this series for several seasons, and many new drivers trying to get themselves locked in from here on out. Really need a good showing this evening.
Man, they certainly do, and they're going to have to do it on a tough track as we run this IRL configuration here at Sonoma tonight. Yes, Sonoma Raceway, formerly known as Sears Point and Finian, 2.25 miles around this track tonight. A lot of turns here, not a whole lot of straight line speed in this track unless you find your way down to the drag strip, Evan. But man, there's going to be a lot going on. I mean, we've got 12 turns to navigate on a very, very fast track at which we're seeing times in the 1 minute and 15, 1 minute and 14 second range here. Really fast. The push to pass is in play. You'll get, I think it's 10 of those. But this classic Sonoma IRL configuration is very challenging, a little bit different than the track they ran last year when they ran the Cup Series configuration. Brother, it's going to be a hot one tonight. Looks like we're going to have 32 to 33 cars line up, and every one of them is competitive. Everyone has thrown up a really competitive time out there qualifying right now. That push to pass is not enabled for qualifying, so see times a little bit higher possibly than what they practice. But right now, last night's practice race winner, Jake Wright, in his first lap, puts it on the top of the tree right now with a 1:15.453, Evan. And I'll tell you what, we'll take a second. We're going to let you run around this track with Kevin Brown and the GSRC DW12.
All right, we've got Kevin Brown in the GSRC DW12, so let's do a lap around Sonoma. Turn 1 is a fast left-hander with almost no runoff, but the end of the corner is basically the braking for 2. Super blind crest here, and on lap 1, it'll be a serious problem if any accident erupts. As we plunge towards 3, it's basically a very fast chicane with another blind apex. And as you come out of it, the car will get light, which is frustrating with only a short stretch to 4. Combine that with a downhill braking zone and expect drivers to overshoot the corner frequently. 5 is flat out and sets you up for the carousel. There's a huge drop in elevation here and a large variation in lines you can take. Just be careful not to brake too late since it's likely to make the car swap ends. Now that we're dumped onto the drag strip, we see our first good passing opportunity of the lap into the hairpin of 7. This is a double apex corner that's going to lead us into the S's, so you'll want to execute your pass cleanly. That way, you're not trying to weave through this next section of track side by side. You'll be losing gobs of time if either of you fights back in this single file portion of the lap. However, if you can stay close, you might have a chance at a pass down into the turn 9 chicane. Just be careful not to take too much curb and unsettle the car. From there, it's one more short blast around turn 10 and into the hairpin of 11. There's a few different lines that you can take due to iRacing's lenient track boundaries, but that can cause issues if your opponent isn't paying attention to your approach. After that, we've returned to the front stretch and finished a lap around Sonoma.
And back live, we are at the virtual Sonoma Raceway in Sonoma, California. Think outside the oval. That's going to be the key to tonight's race. Again, we welcome you into the GSRC broadcast tower. Evan Pasoko, Sean Ambrose, and our director, Amjad Yamid, with you. Sean, saw the lap around there. This is a very difficult racetrack, and something that you touched on right before we went to that lap guide is this is a different configuration of this Sonoma Raceway than what we saw one season ago. They ran the Cup course, so with the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series runs, they drive the chute and you essentially skip corners 5 and 6, so it makes this track a little bit shorter, but as well they use the longer turn 11. We're shortcutting that, so it is a very different circuit, coming in at 2.25 miles in length, and with 34 laps, that's going to bring us to 75 miles race distance for tonight's event. But this is a very difficult racetrack to drive. There's not a lot of room, if any, in some corners, runoff space. So being very precise is going to be key. But when you're doing it 34 times and you times 34 by 12, that's a lot of different opportunities to make a mistake. And this race could very easily come down to who makes the least of them.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, from right past the start-finish line, you make that turn into turn 1, up the hill into 2. That is a high-speed turn. You're full throttle, pretty much really close up to the top of turn 2 there. And then you got to get back on the power into 3. And again, another high-speed turn right there as you get up to 3A and down into 4. Man, lots of trouble to be found in the very beginning stages of this race. And then you've got that carousel there through 6, which is can be run close to flat out, but there's a million different lines through that carousel. So, another thing I'm going to be watching tonight is the strategy being played out here. Now, we know some guys are going to go 2 stops. I'm telling you right now, you need at least 1 stop. You can't go start to finish without making a stop. There will be green flag pit stops tonight. It'll be interesting to see which teams try to gamble with that 1-stop strategy or 2-stop strategy. I don't think you'll see many people doing a 3-stop strategy. 2 stops will get it. Again, that'll be the thing to watch. Who does 1 versus 2? Another thing to look for tonight, there's 15 incident points in place here. A couple of tires off the track here can make a big difference and rack up those incident points really quick. So you're going to have to watch out for that tonight, Ed.
And as well, we talked about the top 20 in this season's championship. After tonight is now going to be what dictates the drivers that are locked into these races. Still through tonight and through the first 3 races, we have been using the top 20 in last season's final points results as well. Some housekeeping things to mention. Ian Adams, Joe Hassert, Vincent Blumenthal, and Chris Stouffer do have EOL penalties from infractions last week at Iowa. They're going to be going to the back of the grid to start this race, regardless of where they qualify, if they do opt to go out there and put down a time. Big thing is with this 34-lap race is there are no caution flags, Sean. So in the IndyCar Series, you will see at time full course cautions. You'll see that as well in NASCAR on the road side of things. Not in the sim. All you have in the sim is sector yellows, and really all that is the sim telling you that somebody has spun. There is not going to be any cautions flags, so we're green from lap 1 through lap 34, which means that because of that, this race is going to be done rather quickly, just about over 45 minutes in length. But as well, that means that when you make a mistake, unlike in an oval track where you might get in an accident, we say you get away with it, that's not going to be an option here tonight, because you're really going to go backwards and it's really going to hurt you time-wise, which is why pacing yourself as well is just as important, if not equally as important, as I mentioned before, than sheer speed. You have a 12-lap racetrack, or rather 12-quarter racetrack, and you're doing about 34 laps here. That gives you 408 opportunities to make a mistake as we hit the final minute of our 10-minute qualifier.
That's pretty good stat keeping right there, Evan. I got to say, I really think the key to this race is 2 things tonight. You said one of them, and that's pace. Okay, you're going to have to maintain a really good pace. If a 1-stop strategy is your play, then that pace is going to probably maybe be just a little bit slower, because you're going to have to save a little bit of fuel to do that 1-stop. The second thing that you're going to have to do tonight is you're going to have to stay out of trouble. You're going to have 32 cars. It looks like right now 32 cars go off this grid. Man, that's going to be a lot of guys fighting for position down into turn 1 and up the hill. And Again, that's going to be a really dicey proposition to start this race tonight, Evan.
And with that, qualifying will draw to a close, and we get set to see who's going to walk away with the fourth race in this season. 3 races so far, 3 different winners. It was Rick Music at Homestead of Miami, Daniel Roper at the Milwaukee Mile, and George Anzaldo surviving the Iowa Speedway and gaining a record 18 positions in the championship standings. He sits 4th right now. We'll talk about points, we'll talk about last race, and most importantly, we'll talk about what happens here tonight at Sonoma as this race progresses on. But as we get set to get this race underway, we'll take you down to the grid and let you know where everybody will stack up for this one with the GSRC starting grid. Talked to him earlier today. He said he wants to go 2 for 2. It's his second start so far. He's only finished P1. He sits P1 right now. Pole position going to go to the 61 of Daniel Roper. Only driver to get down into the 1 minute 14 second bracket with a 1:14.904 puts the 61 on pole position. Alongside him, the 21 of Alan Bowes.
And starting on the inside there, 3rd position, that's going to be last night's practice race winner, Jake Wright. Starting outside of him is going to be the 777 of Austin Espity. Watch for him. He's been fast, wicked fast in the practices.
James Krahula will roll from 5th position in the number 4 machine. Alongside him, the 05 of Ricky Hart. And Justin Laxton going to start from 7th on the grid alongside 8th position, the number 66 of Tommy Ryan. Pierre Deigel in 9th, rounding out your top 10, the AAA to Michael Gray.
And in 11th will be Dan Guerin in the number 8. Corey Connor in the number 2 will start 12th. Jason Galvin in the number 12 will start 13th. Zach Troll from New Jersey will start 14th in the number 80. And Rick Music in the number 5 will start 15th tonight.
It'll be a 16th position to Joe Branch. Jesse A. Fowler in 17th. 18th to Alfred E. Shepard. Covey Moore in 19th. Rounding out your top 20, it's Big Joe Hassert.
And then we'll take it back to Ronald Hacker in the number 102, starts 21st. George Anzaldo starting 22nd tonight at number 6, last race winner there at Iowa. Terry Matheson in 23rd and number 18. In the 105, Mark Goodwin starts 24th. And in the number 48, Robert Bluen. He'll go 25th tonight, Evan.
26th position going to be Carl Burke, Vincent Blumenthal 27th, 28th Mark Nobert, Chris Lanini 29th, and 30th to Tony Lurcock. Jonathan Goke on a provisional will start in 31st. Ian Adams will start in 32nd. And again, we did mention that Adams, Hassert, Blumenthal, and Stouffer will all end up as the back 4 cars on the grid when they do receive that EOL penalty. Field now paces behind the iRacing.com. First Ford Mustang pace car, 1 pace lap before we get underway tonight at Sonoma. And as we progress through this 34-lap affair, do have a couple of onboard cameras that we're going to ride on with you this evening and take an interesting look at the action. First off, riding with the Race Center onboard camera. That's going to be your 10th place starter, the 888 machine of Michael Gray. We'll ride on board with him at points tonight in that Race Center on board. And as well, George Anzaldo, he'll be carrying the No Chance Racing onboard camera. We'll be able to see he fight himself up through the field here tonight as well after coming off of that win just 1 week ago. Right now slated to start in 22nd. So, Sean, we went from the NASCAR course, we'll call it, essentially the shorter course, down to the IRL circuit now, 2.25 miles. They're on the drag strip, at least at that point in the racetrack, 160 miles an hour. Any final thoughts before we get this one underway based on what we saw last night in this practice race?
I think the point man, the leader, has the distinct advantage here to get out in the clean air and run away if anybody behind him starts fighting. And as we saw last night, that was a huge advantage for Jake Wright, who did have to come in with 2 laps to go and take a quick splash and go. He had 38 seconds to the good when he came in, and he was still able to come out and win the race. So let's watch what the leaders do. Again, they stand the best chance to survive any chaos behind.
We're about to find out how this one will shake down. 34 laps and 75 miles. And again, that magic number, 408 corners. From the green flag to the checkered in this one. We saw an interesting battle of attrition just 1 week ago at Iowa. Now to get the road segment of this 2015 Season 2 Championship underway, it's time to go. We're very glad to have you with us on the GSRC. We get set to get underway. Daniel Roper in control and at the final quarter. Green flag flies and the GSRC Sonoma 75 is green. Down up through quarters number 1 and 2 for the first time. Everybody trying to single file out. Leaders, though, close battle out of 2.
Justin Laxton pulled off the track on the pace lap. I don't know what happened with Justin, but he's off the track.
Trouble for Justin Laxton. Hearing that car may have had some issues on that pace lap there, getting into an incident. Meanwhile, things getting checked up front. It looked like Jake Wright drove it wide into quarter 2. He got passed by Austin Espety, and now another driver trying to get a move on him is James Grahula. That fight would be for P4 on the racetrack right now, but it looks like for the most part, most of these drivers, if not everybody, getting through corners number 1 and 2. Clean on driver off track. It's Mark Goodwin in the 105 car. Nobody else involved. He'll get back on, but he's slow back in 25th.
And Carl Burke already disconnected from this race. Not sure what happened to Carl. I'm trying to find out now. He got off to what looked to be a decent start. Oh, and then there was carnage in front of him. Looked like there was George Gonzalo got involved in that. Man, that was a mess there. No, George stayed under power. I got to go back and look at that again, Evan.
Somebody else is in the fence now. Down the back straightaway, Justin Laxton is in the outside retaining wall. That driver was slated to start in 7th. He is still in that outside wall. After that happened, something under the pace laps, I believe his car might have broken. There was a checkup in front of him, we know that much, on the pace laps, and I think he just either lost control of his sim or something, but he drove that overdrive graphics machine into the wall. That car is heavily damaged, and I believe he may be having some sort of a sim issue because he still sits there on the side of the racetrack and not moving.
Yeah, Nobert was involved in that incident as well. He has also left the race. Several guys there towards the back got caught up going into that last turn just as the green flag was flying, and that was a mess down there in the turn.
So Mark Nobert and Carl Burke as well fall victim to all of that. It looks like Justin Laxton's in defense. Joe Hazard on pit road for repairs, and then Burke and Nobert are out of this race. 4 drivers suffering major issues on lap number 1. Meanwhile, it's clean sailing for your race leader, the number 6 winner Daniel Roper, 1 for 1 so far on the year. Trying to go 2 for 2 as we talked to him earlier today. He leads this race right now in front of Alan Bowes. Alan Bowes listed as one of the drivers to keep an eye on for this race. Alan driving as one of the DWC Pro drivers on a NASCAR iRacing.com series of things. He won the televised B Open split from Watkins Glen just a couple of weeks ago, and in limited practice was the 7th fastest car hot lap wise. So as that driver sits in 2nd right now, not necessarily at all really, Sean, a driver that you can take a look back on and think he'd be easy to take care of.
Well, right now, Unacceptable Racing is bunched up. Grahula leading the way with Harden right behind him and Tommy Ryan right behind him. So those 3 are working together, obviously. And then Pierre Deigel, got to watch out for him. He is going to be on the move pretty quick here. He was fast last night. I expect him to be fast again, but pretty good mid-pack racing going on right now. It's spread out all over the track right now, Evan.
And things up inside the top 10, separated from 1st through 10th by 10 seconds as they drive on the racetrack right now. Another driver down to the pit lane. Looks like trouble for the 12 car of Jason Galvin. Was running in 13th position, had a self-spin going down the back half of the race course. Looks like it was down into corner number 4 just after the uphill S's. Got sideways, got into the wall. He comes down pit road to get service done on that machine already. That's going to drop him back significantly on the lead lap. But again, mistakes and limiting those very on the forefront much early in this one.
Just checking in with George Gonzalo. He's still keeping it clean. He's got Chris Lanini chasing him. He's got Jonathan Goke right in front of him, kind of in the middle there, and on board with George Gonzalo right now. And man, I'll tell you what, so far his strategy is intact. So we are in the early stages of this race, but I think the field is spread out enough right now that these guys can maintain a decent pace and keep it clean. We still see cars kind of running off a little bit, but still trying to maybe get a little heat in these tires and find a little grip here. It is right now 91 degrees, so pretty warm out there on the track. Still working those tires in, Evan.
One car sideways, the 14 of Pierre Deigel. He'll be able to hang on to it. That driver just about lost it on the inner part of the racetrack right now. Was going to start mentioning him, Sean, because there's quite a few drivers that were very fast in practice, but did not qualify very well. Pierre was one of them, was fourth fastest in the practice charts. Still a top 10 car in Cuba with a 1:16.225. Found himself in 9th and 8th right now. He was closing in on Tommy Ryan, James Krahula, and Ricky Harden all up in front of him before that car got sideways and evidently cost him significant time. But on the topic of that, a lot of drivers who were fast in practice not have the qualifying, and so far have not had the first 4 laps of the race that they would have liked. Dan Guerin, 6th fastest. He's back in 15th position right now, just to mention one of them.
You know what? In more trouble. I see Big Joe Hassert is out. Throughput fell to an unacceptable level. So Joe battling some connection demons this evening. Really rare for him to drop out of a race like that.
Battle for P9, you're taking a look at that. It's Corey Connor in the number 2 car that has it, and there is a fray behind him. Rick Music leads that charge. Jesse Fowler, Joe Branch as well. Branch and Fowler fighting in their own right for 11th position. All of this happening just up in front of Dan Guerin as they all try to quickly close in. Looks like Rick Music, who trying to go on the attack to Corey Connor, getting run over from behind in his own right as he tries to defend over Fowler and Branch. And that Mobile 1 entry, the 5 car, started in 12th up to 10th right now. Very condensed right here on the racetrack. Your top 2 right now, Daniel Roper, Alan Bowes, 1st and 2nd. They're separated by 1.7 seconds. 3rd is 3 seconds back, 4th is 5 seconds back, and 5th is 10 seconds back. So the guys up front, they have plenty of racing room. It's back here, though, around 9th. We have a lot of guys side by side and already started to have to deal with some lap traffic as Mark Goodwin going to come to nearly a stop before that chicane to allow that battle to go through.
Now, how about some of these guys pulling double duty tonight? Ricky Harden, James Krahula, Tommy Ryan. They just all got... Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. They're not pulling double duty tonight. I got that wrong.
I'll tell you what, they are all running together on the racetrack right now. So 5th, 6th, and 7th, maybe the off night a little bit earlier on in the evening allowed these guys to get some practice. And very, often we'll see sometimes that you got teammates running together. But for these 3 drivers coming over here to run this IndyCar series as well on Wednesday evenings, again, typically they run the American Sim Racing Series earlier tonight. They had an off week in regards to that. Very interesting to see how close they are on time, 5th, 6th, and 7th, and right on top of each other.
Yeah, I forgot they had the night off. In fact, they gave themselves a little bit more time to prepare, but they're showing the speed right now, man. Those truck drivers are managing to wheel these Indy cars around here in classic fashion right now. All 3 of them very fast right now. Ricky Harden is still leading the way and pretty impressive. Now, I got to tell you, I know a little something about James Krahula. And anyone familiar with sim racing and the equipment it takes to go sim racing would be familiar with the old TSW sim wheels, bench-built, custom-made. They are analog, at least the original versions were. And James Krahula running that TSW tonight, making it work. I got to tell you, that's a pretty tricky thing to do with an old analog wheel like that.
And he's riding right now in 6th. That puts him back 1 spot from where he started on the grid. Take a look at Terry Mathinson, the number 18 machine. Started this race in 23rd, sits in 14th position right now. Terry currently sits 8th in the points, and he's just 25 off the top spot. Did not have the result that he wanted, much like a lot of drivers 1 week ago at the Iowa Speedway. Picked as one of the sleeper picks into tonight's race, and already with a net gain of 10, off to a good start.
You know, Jonathan Goke also off to a great start. He started 31st, Evan, and right now running 14th. Back from a few weeks off while he was overseas on duty and looking really good to start this race.
And starting to hear some radio buzz 7 laps into this race that drivers may be coming down pit road. Those that would evidently be running that 2-stop strategy believe we may have heard over the Team Nailed It radio of Dan Guerin that they may be electing to come down pit road this next time by. 3 of the 4 of those Team Nailed It cars wrecked out last week at Iowa. A lot of drivers looking for redemption. This team would not object to a strong run tonight, and Dan right now sits back in the 20th spot after starting 11th. Hopes they go in the right direction very soon after he got contact earlier on.
You know, we talked about him earlier. You know who else is really looking good right now? George Unzado still looking really smooth. Started 22nd, up to 16th, gaining positions.
Trouble
right now-
Austin Espity, the driver in third spot, Sean. He's way off track. He was trying to catch Alan Bowes. I think he was trying to get around lap traffic, actually, Vincent Bluthenthal. And this inner loop on a racetrack has been a very interesting spot. We'll call it the inner loop. It's the big curving left-hander before you hit the drag strip, Sean. This is a part where these drivers have said there's no real particular line. You can do what you want. You can play with it. Austin Espity chose the one lane that doesn't work. He looked like he locked it up. The car shot to the left, shot to the right. He got way out there in the grass. Good news for him is he kept it off of the wall. Bad news is he'll lose about 2 spots.
Yeah, but you did say the good news is he didn't damage the car, and man, that's so important here. You really want your car to handle well here with all these turns and hairpins. Really important. Goes a little wide there coming off the last turn, but right now Espity still looking in pretty good shape as they cycle around. He is looks like he's going to stay in 4th position, Evan.
Yeah, so scoring good update. He did lose that 7-second gap that he had, but James Krahula not going to go any more forward. He'll drop to 4th. The only driver that got around him was Jake Wright. So the 27 machine going to jump up from 4th to 3rd, and Espity will drop from 3rd to 4th on the racetrack as they go right now. Still 19 drivers within a minute of your race lead. There's a couple of drivers in relative risk for losing their lead lap to the hustling Daniel Roper. Ian Adams just lost his lead lap, as well as Jason Galvin. That driver going a lap down as well. Dan Garrett would be the next driver on the chopping block. Just 10 seconds to the good and 22nd.
You know, as road courses goes, this is a little bit shorter than maybe most. Certainly, I don't know, maybe it's average, but I got to tell you, with 1 minute and 15 and 16-second laps around here, it doesn't take long to catch the back of the field, especially with the trouble that we saw early and guys having to cycle in for pit stops long before they planned. So Daniel Roper is going to have his work cut out for him as he starts to, right now doesn't have anyone immediately in front of him, but he'll be catching him soon, and when he does, navigating that traffic, communication with those drivers is going to be so important tonight, Evan.
Ricky Harden going to be able to make a move on Tommy Ryan, so the 66 going to drop back to 7th, and Harden jumps up to 6th position, and he'll regain the spot that he actually started this race in that Chevrolet-powered 05 entry. He'll jump back up, and again, we've been talking about Krahula, Harden, and Ryan all running together on the racetrack. Those 3 drivers right now just separated by 2 seconds on the racetrack. Pretty good difference when you talk about 3rd and 4th being separated by 7 and some change. Alan Bowes, though, the big story in this one at all, it's that Cheez-It machine. Sean again talked about this driver, very good on the road side of things, out in the stock cars. The NASCAR PK Free Series driver, the number 21, did not even put down a time in the 30-minute practice before qualifying, went out there, put down the second best lap. So that tells me that he did a lot of practice during the week so that he could just hop right in and come out hot like that and not have to really get a lot of time to get warmed up, because it's very easy to go out here, try to memorize all of these braking points, and then if you don't hop onto the racetrack and you go right into Q trim and you try to put down a hot lap, it's very easy to overcook it. The 21 seems to have a handle on what he wants to do. Only thing is that he's 6.3 seconds back from Daniel Roper, who may have a handle on the 21 in company, because nobody anywhere in the same zip code has that leader.
Well, and here's a little story about the 21, okay? The Cheez-It machine has got pretty significant damage on the left side. The wing is crushed in, the side pod is bent and twisted up, and I talked about these cars needing to handle well on this track. Alan Bowes doing a really great job right now, working with what I'm sure is not a really good handling car right now, but able to fend off the charge from Jake Wright right now. Jake's not too far behind him. We'll see what Jake can do with him when he gets to him.
So far have had no major scares as far as the lap traffic, and we've been talking about how now only 21 drivers sit on the lead lap out of the 32 that started, many of which were involved in incidents. We can tell you Mark Nobert is out of this race. He'll come home at the back of the field in 32nd. Carl Burke, Justin Laxton, Joe Hassert, and Michael Gray are all out of this race. Again, we were taking a look at Michael a little bit earlier on in this one with the race center onboard camera. He is out. Then you got 7 drivers that aren't on the lead lap, 6 rather, but are still out there on track. Mark Goodwin is 2 laps down. He had an incident, came down trying to get repairs. He's 2 laps down in 27th. And then you have everybody 22nd through 26th. So that's Jason Galvin, Ian Adams, Robert Blue, and Vincent Bluthenthal, and Jesse Fowler 1 lap down. still out on the racetrack. That number going to increase once Dan Guerin, Zach Troll, and Kobe Moore could be the next 3 to go down off of the lead lap at this moment. And again, this is still shy of really any first swing of pit strategy. We thought we might have seen the 8 car coming down of Dan Guerin. That evidently never happened. That driver was on pit road much earlier in this race. He came in on lap 7. Is that early enough to be part of a 2-stop strategy?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, if you're coming in on lap 7, you're definitely going to need another pit stop before this race is over. Your fuel, even if you're saving, you can't get, I don't really think you can get any more than 17 laps out of this machine. So, and, there's, again, strategy being played. Coming on the radio saying you're going in might be trying to bait somebody else to go in before they actually plan. So, got to watch out for those guys. They are always got something up their sleeve, but I got to tell you, I'm still thinking about what happened to Justin Laxton. What a tough break for him. I know how hard he worked to make this race this week and be competitive. And boy, to see him go out the way he did with connection issues, something was going on there. I'm not sure, but we'll certainly find out. Probably have the story for you next week. But tough break for Justin tonight in the Overdrive Graphics DW12.
But absolutely, and you take a look at the fact that he was 9th in points into tonight. That could put him at relative risk to have to go through the LCQ if he does not remain top 20 after tonight. That could cause a little bit more of a headache for that driver as well going forward. Do have a battle for P16 on the racetrack, and it's a good one. It's George Anzaldo who's got it. Tony Lurcock wants it, and Ronald Hacker getting out of the way and all of that. That driver went to the outside and looks like he almost got the left side tires out in, I want to call it the grass, but it's all dead. I'll call it sand. And he got out there, wasn't able to turn into the corner. That is how Anzaldo was able to get a little bit of a gap because Tony Lurcock was preoccupied with getting around the 102. Now that he's through and clear, that's going to be a 2-car length differential up the hill down through quarter number 2 between Anzaldo and Lurcock for 16th.
And I got to tell you, as soon as Lurcock gets close to George is probably going to just let him go. George is determined to... Oh, there we go. Daniel Roper is in the pits, I'm hearing, Evan.
And that is your race leader. Going to come down to pit road at lap number 13 in this race. You talk about you might be able to squeeze 17 out of it. Would this indicate that he's going to go with a 2-stop strategy as he heads into the number 1 pit stall?
I would say that's a pretty safe bet. I don't see how he could do it any other way, but he's not going to need much fuel depending on when he stops. I mean, if he waits towards the end, he's just going to need a splash and go to finish it. But, again, you've got to have a pretty good lead to pull that off. So we'll see how it cycles back for Dan Roper. And, he'll have to pick and choose when he's going to come in, and that'll really determine the length of that next pit stop.
Many drivers going to get around him. He'll drop to 4th at the line, but James Krahula, Ricky Harden, Tommy Ryan, and Pierre Deigel amongst the names that are going to be able to get around him, pass him on a racetrack, so it looks like he'll be falling to 7th or 8th. Once the live standings do update, it looks like he'll be 8th position in this one. Didn't take him a whole lot of time to come down pit road, so he got back out there relatively quickly, and he'll open up a wave. Now down pit road
Jake
from
Wright.
2nd spot, that's the 27 of Jake C. Wright into pit road.
Yeah, and Alan Bose keeps that car on the track as he clicks off lap 15, so expect to see Bose come in maybe the next lap. Maybe he takes it 2 more. He's got to be low on fuel. If Jake's in, I'm going to guess Alan's going to be in any time now.
Well, Alan Bose heard Jake Wright come over the radio and say that he was going down pit road before they hit the pit road entry, so Bose electing to stay out at least 1 more lap in this one. That'll cycle James Krahula up to 3rd and Austin Espity into the 2nd position in this race. And the pit stop time, gained or lose, is going to be about 25 seconds. If you want to play it safe, Pierre Deigel right now, 21 seconds off Alan Bose, and he did have a couple of seconds good over the 21 who was riding inside the top 5 before all of this caution, or rather all of the green flag pit stops got underway. So you're going to look at about 25 seconds to come down pit road, mainly because you have to go around the outside of turn 12 there on the shorter circuit of this racetrack as well, operated in the full circuit, so that's what's going to cost him a little bit of time in all of that. Very careful as well getting on the pit road, not making a mistake, because you still got to drive through a right-hander there with walls on either side of you. Would not be a surprising thing to see even some issues happen down there. Do have a good battle for P3 on the racetrack right now. You're taking a look at it. The bright blue and yellow number 4 of James Krahula is being chased down right now. Ricky Harden makes the move on him, so that's actually the 05. He made the move on the 4 trying to come back at him, and Krahula driving it a little bit harder into the corners, trying to catch him. It hurts him on exit.
Evan, Alan Bose stayed out. He is still on the track, man, as he cycled around on lap 16. Gotta wonder, that car getting pretty light. He is probably going to need to bring that in right here. I don't know. I don't want to guess, but based on what I saw last night, I got to think he's coming in this lap here. Ricky Harden, Krahula, and Tommy Ryan all behind him. I'm wondering if maybe they're going to bring it in too. Again, these cars are about to the max of their fuel load right now. So let's watch now as we see these cars maybe get ready to pit. We'll see.
And you have to figure as well, if he completes 17 laps, that is halfway home in a 34-lap race. Right now, working lap 16. One driver turned around right there in front of your race leader, George Anzaldo, spins from 20th. He'll lose the lead lap and all of that. He'll get the car back going straight and get back out there on the racetrack. And now Alan Bose does come down pit road. Is he going to try to stretch this next stint 18 laps? Because if not, that's going to be just short of making it on one stop and would definitely be a splash and go, but a costly one.
You know, and here come the Unacceptable Racing guys, and they stay out. Ricky Hart and Krahula and Tommy Ryan all stay out. Now, we've seen this before. Those guys like to stay out just as long as they can. Maybe this little bit of drafting they've been doing around the track maybe saves them a little bit of fuel. I'm not really sure, but they do elect to stay out 17 laps into this race. Gotta wonder when they're coming in.
Bose goes back out onto the racetrack. Krahula, Ryan all stay out, as well as Ricky Harden. They will cycle to the top spot on the racetrack once everything cycles through. Alan Bose looks like he'll be falling about to P6 as he gets that car back out on track. So Daniel Roper up to 5th position at the start-finish line. He'll go to 4th right now. You take a look at the number 81 machine right now rather than the number 61. He's going to bump up and get back inside the top 4. Most importantly, though, he's in front of Alan Bose. So even if Bose is trying to make this on that one stop, the gap would be, the question between those two drivers as you take a look at them on the racetrack right now. You figure they both got to come in, so Bose really didn't gain anything by stretching that. I'm sure, though, if he's possible, and if anything, he'd want to try to stretch it on a one-stop strategy. Otherwise, I don't see the benefit of staying out those 4 extra laps.
Well, what he did get was that car repaired. So Alan's going to be a little bit faster now. We're going to see him turn probably some hotter laps. Unacceptable Racing coming on in. Here we go. Ricky Harden, Krahula, Tommy Ryan, all bringing him in. Right on strategy. I'm going to guess these guys are probably going to go for a one-stop, Evan. They're going to try it.
They're going to be exiting the pit lane as they cross the start-finish line and take halfway home in this one. And when you equate as well, they did run a pace lap on that Sellafield that they are just now topping off and going to reload here as they come down pit road. They should be able to make it to the end if they're making the same fuel efficiency for the second half of this race. What this does is it puts Daniel Roper out to the top spot and Alan Bose sits in second. So that Penske truck rental number 72, he'll lose the spot. Bose working around the lap machine of Vincent Blumenthal. Blumenthal trying to get out of the way, or Jake Wright's going to move him out because Wright trying to chase down Alan Bose in what would be a battle for second on the racetrack. You have to think, though, Bose is trying to do the one-stop strategy. We're almost guaranteed, except Unacceptable Racing, they're going for the one-stop. They pitted at the halfway point. If you're Alan Bose pitting 1 lap before the halfway, a 12-second gap is not going to be enough time for you to make up anything on Daniel Roper if you need a pit. Now, if Bose is good and Roper does need a pit, 12 seconds, and I said about 25 to come down, get back up to speed. That's going to put the advantage way in the hands of Alan Bose if he does not need to come down and Daniel Roper does, which we do expect to see with the 61 who pitted so early. There's no way he can come down pit road. No more times. He'll have to make at least one more stop. The only thing that Daniel Roper would have going for him is the fact that he has fresh tires. He can be out there running quicker laps, but a 12-second gap, he needs that to get a lot bigger. He'll put it up to 13.8, so he's doing what he needs to do right now, but it looks like Alan Bose may be in the hot seat, rather, if you're talking about drivers who are trying the one-stop strategy.
Yeah, and he's got Jake right hot on his tail, man, and Jake is fast. Loves this course. Been burning it up for 2 weeks now in preparation for tonight. Jake is on a really hot pace right now. Now we know he came in here lap what was it, lap 14? I think he brought it in, and so obviously looking at possibly a two-stop strategy. I've got to imagine it's two-stop. He is really getting close. He's driving it in deep here into the turn. He is really working on Bose right now and able to keep distance between him and Osman Espity. Espity just can't seem to close the gap right yet.
Jake Wright, another name we mentioned, he came down pit road at lap 15, so he would be 19 laps short of being able to go this race on the distance with fuel, and he's third behind Alan Bose, who needs to stretch at 18, and they're all trailing Daniel Roper, who would have to go 21 or so laps. Not going to happen. 61 needs to come down. You'll see Daniel Roper works around the lap machine. Dan Guerin will fall off at a lead lap, so Guerin will stay in 18th position, but he'll go one lap to the negative, and that's going to put Terry Matheson, one of the drivers listed as the driver to watch tonight in the Banshee Autosport machine. He'll be the next one on the chopping block to lose the lead lap, but keep watching that interval. Feel like we're going to have a battle for second here very soon. Bose has it, but Jake Wright and Austin Espity are closing very quickly. Alan Bose has the best tires out of any of these drivers. Daniel Roper wants to see them fight because he's slowly building that gap that he would need to pit, get back out there on track with tires. If indeed these drivers don't have to come down, I'm thinking Bose is plausible if that number of about 17 laps, Sean, you mentioned, is fairly accurate as far as what these guys are going to be doing at a full pace. But Jake Wright trying to stretch at 19, I don't know. But in theory, if these guys are good, and that's still a huge question mark, they might not even know at this point, Daniel Roper needs to keep building his lead, and he's doing so.
Yeah, well, you know what? He's not really battling with anybody right now, so these guys they're fighting. Bose, Reich, and Espity are fighting pretty good right now. Driving out of their mirrors and really trying to gain an advantage on each other has allowed Roper to just continue to open it up. And honestly, Vincent Blumenthal coming in right now, but as long as Daniel's not fighting with anybody, he can continue to just focus on the track and get away. He gets enough distance that pit stop, it isn't going to really matter. He's going to be able to get in and out and do it in enough time to stay in the lead.
Right now, the top 8 old drivers that started in single-digit running positions. Indeed, the only driver up there that is not continuing to run top 10 as where they started was Justin Laxton, who started in 7th, never made it to the green flag. He'll finish in 30th tonight. Other than that, the top 8 on track all started in single-digit running positions. It's been very difficult for drivers to make up substantial ground at the front of the field. Mid-pack, we have seen a lot of shuffling going on, but up front, it's been relatively the same group of drivers, with Daniel Roper leading over Alan Bose, Jake Wright, Austin Espity, Ricky Harden, Tommy Ryan, James Krahula, and Pierre Deigel inside of the top 8. So Daniel Roper came in earlier in this race. Question is, how much longer does he stay out in that 61 if he does try to split the gap the same way? He came down on lap number 14. If he doubles that run, he'll be coming in around lap number 28, but again, it all depends on how long he wants to sit down there on pit road. You would expect that he'll take 4 fresh tires, so a splash and go really wouldn't be much of an advantage, because if you're doing that one stop, or rather if you're doing the 2-stop strategy, Sean, you need 2 stops of tires every time you come down to try to compensate for that loss of speed. Trouble for Alfred E. Shepard. You saw the 13 go off track just and around our leaders. That driver running in 12th, he'll get back out on track, no damage.
Yeah, tough turn to navigate right there. That's a really, really sharp turn, and you tend to maybe overdrive that a little bit. There's a lot of runoff to get into. Tough battle to get back into there. Battle for 6th place right now. The fight is on. Ryan and Krahula really going at it, and Ryan trying to put a little pressure on his teammate right now. And Ryan has gotten around Krahula, and now Krahula is one putting the pressure on him. Ryan able to pull that move off after Krahula spent all that time up in front of them. So good battle going on right now between those three, and Pierre Deigel not too far behind.
Yeah, Pierre Deigel trying to join the party. He's got to get around George Ansaldo, though, who sits 1 lap down in 21st. Your winner from 1 week ago has fallen off at a lead lap early in this one after being part of the first opening lap shenanigans and melees. He was able to get through it relatively unscathed, all things considered, but a lot of drivers who got the worst end of things still could have been a lot better for that camp. Right now you sit with 12 drivers on the lead lap, and it's a waiting game. Jonathan Goke going to get over to the side of the racetrack. He'll now fall off at the lead lap at a U.S. Air Force entry in 12th spot, so 11 on the lead lap. Daniel Roper goes on by. 18.9 seconds is the gap he has over Alan Bowes, who he's got to know that Jake Wright and Austin Espity are all over the back of him. You got to think that's going to be slowing the 21 down. He can't just let them go because he knows very well that they could be on the same strategy as he is, trying to make it all the way. But the more he keeps looking at him, there you go. He'll let him on by. This is great news for Daniel Roper. Both Bowes is going to get over, and he'll allow both Jake Wright and Austin Espity to get around him. So it was relatively painless as far as these guys getting around. Could have taken a lot longer if they battled, but that does give a couple more tenths to Daniel Roper up front.
It does, and we keep talking about it. But, Roper right now, he is he's pushing that car. Doing it, though, without overdriving it. And he's got a clean machine again. And Staff Sergeant Goke there, a little bit of damage on that car. He is wheeling that car around now a lap down. Still going to need another pit stop. Probably get a little repair when he comes in if he can. Goke looking to get that lap back. He is the first one a lap down right now. Going to be really tough to do, even with the pit stop cycling through.
So the gap, 20 seconds. I estimated you might want 25 seconds of a gap to get back out there. Daniel Roper right now is on older tires than Jake Wright, Austin Espity, and Alan Bowes. They all pitted at about halfway. He pitted maybe at a third distance through this one, evidently on a two-tire strategy. He's a second quicker than second through fourth right now. You got to think if he comes down pit road and gets back out there on fresh tires, he should have that much more of an advantage. However, there's not a whole lot of tire fall off in this race. Daniel Roper still running 1:16.0s out there on the racetrack. That's a top 7 qualifying lap for that driver right now, and he's running them every single time around. So the 61 has the speed, and he's just about at the marker that he's setting for himself of the gap he would need to be able to come down pit road for the second time if everybody second on back does not have to, and get back out there on track. And at least at this point, they wouldn't be too far in front of him. I feel like he'd still lose the lead right now, but he's in a spot where if he gets back out there, he is still well in striking distance. Keep eyes, though, on that interval. Jake Wright doesn't give anything up that last time by. It stays at a 20.0.
Yeah, really, hats off to Robert Bluen and that Dragonfly racing machine. He did a good job of getting out of the way and letting our leader, Dan Roper, get through. And just behind him now, he's got Jonathan Goke closing in on him now. Robert Bluen doing a decent job. He is in 24th, but, he's doing a great job, again, of working with his leaders here that are ahead of him and just staying out of the way. And that's something you want to be aware of when you're road course racing like this. Again, this is a fairly short course, and these cars will come up quick. Lots of closing speed here, so you have to be careful, and you have to give to the guys in front of you. If you don't, it could be a real mess.
We got trouble inside the top 10. James Krahula is off track and into the tire barrier. Coming up the hill at a quarter number 2. You'll take a look at the replay of that incident right now. Wasn't all that bad of contact, but did smack the tire barrier coming up through 1 and 2. Does get damaged. You see the replay right there. Goes sliding off of the racetrack and does tap the right side of the car on that. Does hurt the side pod of that machine, but again, could have been a lot worse. Biggest thing is he'll lose a lot of track position as he falls behind Pierre Deigel. He'll go from P6 to P8 on the racetrack.
Well, Evan, you got to look here at where our leader's at. He's on lap 26. Buddy, there's only 8 laps to go. We're going to see some of these guys on the two-stop strategy. They're going to be coming in at any time now.
And Roper, all eyes on him, was one of the first drivers to come down pit road. When does he go now for the second time? As you mentioned, right now we work with 9 laps to go from Sonoma, and it's Roper, 20.8 seconds. If anything, Jake Wright has closed the gap between P1 and P2 over the last couple of circuits around the racetrack. So now all of a sudden, it's that number 27 team for No Name Racing, who may just be the fastest driver on the racetrack. Question is, can Dan Roper come down pit road, get service, get back out, and get up the speed in 20.8 seconds? Does not like to come down pit road this time by. He'll stay out through lap number 27. Again, he did a 14-lap stint the first time by. So far, he's working on 13 laps since the last time he was down pit road.
Man, Jake Wright has shown this pace all week leading up to this race, and I got to tell you, he ran just a masterful race last night. A two-stop strategy there as well last night. So Jake's got something up his sleeve right now. He's got to get around this car in front of him. He's got right there. He's got Joe Branch in front of him. Austin Espity catching up, but Jake still really showing the pace that made him a winner last night. Looking to make it two nights in a row. We'll see.
Message delivered to Daniel Roper. A sick lap that last time by a race leader. Would have been enough to put him on the podium in qualifying on 13-lap old tires for the 61 machine. A 15.3 last time around the racetrack. Didn't hurt that Jake Wright lost 7/10 off of his pace, and there was a lot of lap traffic that the 27 has been working on. Here comes Daniel Roper down to the pit lane for the final time tonight on that two-stop strategy. He comes down for service. Watch Jake Wright, who's heading on the back half of the racetrack.
I am watching Jake right now. And what
got
is he going to do?
around him.
Yeah, he's got traffic all around him. He's got Espity hot on his tail. And he's got, right now, right in front of him, he's got Joe Branch, and decides to keep it out there for another lap. So we'll see what Jake's going to do. I think Jake probably wants to see how many seconds he can get here closer to Roper, but we'll see.
The Roper is in pit stall. He's getting his service done, and he'll get back out, and goodbye. There goes Jake Wright, not even going to be close. Austin Espity will follow him through. There's still a question mark, though, on the 27 and the 777. Alan Bowes, who we think is going to be good, and we think essentially he is good to go. He is now in front of Daniel Roper as well on the racetrack. So is 7 laps going to be enough for the 61 to catch Alan Bowes if the 21 is the only person he has to deal with? We feel maybe that if anybody's safe, it's the Cheez-It number 21 machine. But now you got to look at Jake Wright. He'll go to the race lead in this one. Started in third. This driver was on pit road at lap 15. That's 2 laps shy of halfway. That means he'd have to get 19 laps out of this fuel cell. Behind him, Austin Espity, all over him. This driver started in 4th position, was last on pit road at lap 16. He'd have to stretch your 18 laps on fuel. Still very close numbers for your race leader, and this could get bad for Jake Wright if he doesn't get around that lap traffic in front of him, because Espity may just pounce on him.
And that lap traffic in front of him is fighting for position. We've got right there, we've got Joe Branch and Alfred Shepard both battling for 14th position right now. So they are trying to work their way through some cars that are fighting right now. So tough thing to pull off right now. Jake's best thing to do is probably just try and stay out of it. He gets real close there to the bumper of Joe Branch, and when he tries to go around the outside there as they get into the turn, Jake trying to, and Espity almost makes contact. He gets off the track just behind.
I'll tell you what, going to the outside and a right-hander there, a gutsy move. It works for Jake Wright. Austin Espity, not quite. The 777 overcooked it a little bit. Left side tires out into the grass. It cost him a lot of time back to your race leader. He'll have to try to make that up as the gap sits right now at just about a second between the top 2. You take a look, though, in front of Jake Wright. The leaders have been battling with lap traffic all race long, just where they've been. Well, everybody but Daniel Roper's been dealing with lap traffic. Jake Wright has seen a lot of traffic in front of him, and he doesn't have a lot of clear track in front of him either. Overcooks that corner a little bit as he has to go to the outside as they work around the lap entry of Alfred Shepard. And now Austin Espity closes in a little bit. Now he has a close call down through the back half of the racetrack, and they head back off now to corner number 11. I'll tell you what, this thing's still far from over as Daniel Roper's 8.8 seconds back in closing.
And man, I got to tell you, it was not an easy thing right there for Jake Wright to get around Albert Shepard. He making it pretty tough on these guys right now. And Joe Branch right there with him, and now they've got Alan Bowes right behind him, and Alan not really finding any room to get around right now, Evan.
Daniel Roper about 3 seconds quicker than these guys in front of him the last time by. This race going to come down to 4 laps to go the next time by. Can Daniel Roper make up 5.2 seconds in that time? If he keeps the pace, it's possible. However, passing somebody A whole different ball game than catching them. We've seen how difficult it's been at this racetrack where you back a left-hander up with a right-hander just to get around a lap car tonight and do it safely. Daniel Roper is on the charge. He's about to get to the back bumper of Alan Bowes, and when he gets on the gearbox of that, he has that lap traffic that Jake Wright and Austin Espity have fought through between Bowes and the top two on track. This will be exciting seeing what the 61 can do. He's flying up bottom in the back half of the track.
Okay, Jake Wright is in. Jake Wright is in, and just behind him, Austin Espity. Those cars did need to come in. I thought for a second there that maybe Jake had something up his sleeve, but obviously not. They are in and going to give up the lead as a result of doing so.
So as we predicted, 19 and 18 laps, not going to be a short enough distance to be able to stretch the fuel cell. So the number that I was talking about, Alan Bowes, and that's what Daniel Roper needed to get, that is going to be his target, and he is there. Bowes tries to go to the outside. He's going to break early. Now down to the inside of the racetrack as he works around Alfred Shepard on the outside of the racetrack. He is there. It is Daniel Roper and Alan Bowes, top two on the grid and top two before all the pit stops began on two entirely different strategies. Lead this GSRC Sonoma 75 down to 3 laps to go. The next time across the start-finish line, it's Bowes over Roper by a car length, but evidently that 61 much faster, trying to find a way through, though.
Man, can Bowes actually pull this thing off? I don't think, I got to be honest, I don't think there's anybody else in the field that decided to go with the one-stop strategy but him. Can he do it on these older tires? I don't know, Evan. We're about to find out right now. He seems to have better pace in the turns. The straight line speed's a little bit quicker for Roper, but again, he's managed. Bowes really managing these turns very well and getting off of them very quick. As we go around with 2 laps to go now, Evan.
That's 6.66 miles to go in this race. That time by the start-finish line, Daniel Roper trying to close the gap. He's been running 15.3s, but once he caught Alan Bowes, he's lost about a second of pace. So you know that not only being behind that car in front of him, it's slowing him down just a little bit, but as well, it's causing him to have to check up a little bit. He's trying to think methodically. He can't throw it in. And not only could this force an issue upon Alan Bowes, who is looking behind him and getting a little bit squirrely in a couple of these corners, Sean, but as well, Daniel Roper needs to be very careful that, again, we talked about there's not a whole lot of runoff space. You overshoot a corner here, you get 2 tires out in the grass there, you can pretty much guarantee you're done.
Pierre Deigel having to make a late race pit stop, and man, that's going to cost him several positions. Tough break for Pierre. It looks like he might have gotten off just a bit on that strategy tonight.
So Pierre Deigel going to come down from a top 10 spot on the racetrack. He'll fall off of the lead lap, and we'll be left with 10 drivers on the lead lap as we run right now all the way through Terry Mathinson in that number 10 spot. He'll bump up to 11th, but it's not guaranteed. How about a bump and run in an IndyCar at Sonoma? Real close that time into the final turn. Alan Bowes just hanging on over Daniel Roper. They are far from done at 2 laps to go. There's a scrap for the race win.
I believe in medicine they call that a certain type of exam. I won't go into it, but that was really close.
And I don't think we're done with it yet. Not necessarily a bump and run racetrack or a bump and run race car. Talked about how Alan Bowes won the iRacing.com B-Class televised broadcast on iRacing Live a little bit ago. The driver with the NASCAR Peak Antifree Series. He's used to the bump and run on a stock car. Not sure how that would fare in an Indy car. Nonetheless, these boys are going at it. Daniel Roper to the inside. Outbreaks Alan Bowes. They go side by side in the back half. Can the 21 fight back on the outside? He does.
Wow, what a piece of driving right there. Those two able to keep them side by side through the turn. And Bowes right there just powers off the turn and able to get in front. Oh, when he comes out of side, Roper's inside.
Roper outbreaks him again, and this time he's got it. It was a masterful defense by Alan Bowes in corner 7. That time, though, Daniel Roper, harder on the brakes with new tires, was able to throw it in and down to corner number 9. Absolutely just outbroke Alan Bowes, and because of that very quick left-hander afterwards, Sean, Bowes had no chance to give him a crossover. White flag is in the air, and it's Roper with the lead, and I feel like he'll be driving away.
Ooh, I don't know. Don't give up on Bowes yet. Let's see how deep he breaks it down here into the turn. He's breaking deep. There we go.
And the 61 bobbled it allowed Bowes to close, but that time he'll overshoot corner number 5. Going to cost him some more time. The gap half a second, and it may be growing. Down to the back half of the racetrack for the final time in this race. Racetrack in front of Daniel Roper is, for the most part, clear. He's got to get around Terry Matheson, and that's it. The 18 going to get way out of the way, not a factor.
Yeah, not a factor at all. Good job by Matheson to get out of the way. Roper thanking him for that. Man, does Bose have anything left to get to him here in the very last turn? I don't know. We'll see. It's coming up here real quick, Evan.
Final time through that bus stop. Nothing going to happen there. Sideways is Alan Bose, and I think that's all she had. Daniel Roper from pole position on the two-stop strategy. Fresh tires. It'll get the job done for him. He'll go 2 for 2. Checkered flag flies at a quarter number 12. Daniel Roper wins at Sonoma. He takes home the GSRC Sonoma 75. And Alan Bose will have to settle for second after being just about 3 miles short of his first checkered flag on the year. Daniel Roper gets the job done, and Sean, Alan Bose out of gas up through quarter number 2 on the cool down lap. He just had enough. Unfortunately, though, not enough track position to hold off Daniel Roper. 2 stops prevail over 1.
Well, I know what the guys that finished 3rd, 4th, and 5th would say. Great job by Ricky Harden, James Skrhula, and Tommy Ryan, but I'm sure they're going to get out of the cars and say that's just unacceptable.
The unacceptable racing team, and we're getting some unacceptable puns up in the broadcast booth. Roper, Bose, Harden, Skrhula, and Ryan. We'll talk to some of your top finishers in just a couple of moments as we get the post-race show up here and rolling. But Daniel Roper still has fuel, and he's got plenty of it. Took the quote-unquote safe route, and those fresh Firestones at the end of this race may have given him the drive to go deep, not once, but twice. Bose held on to it the first time. The second charge was not enough, and Daniel Roper walks away a winner for the second time this year at Sonoma. He'll drive that 61 back around to the front straightaway and celebrate it. As he does, we'll step away for just a brief moment and get our microphones down to the pit lane. We'll talk with Roper, Bose, Harden, and more of the post-race show on the Global Sim Racing channel from Sonoma coming up in just a moment. Back live at the virtual Sonoma Raceway in Sonoma, California with the LionHeart IndyCar Series presented by Overdrive Graphics. Tonight, GSRC Sonoma 75 is in the books, and Daniel Roper takes this one home when it is all said and done. Tonight's coverage provided in part by Race Center. We rode on board for the little bit that we saw Michael Gray on track. An unfortunate finish for the 888 machine, but do want to thank Race Center for being a part of tonight's broadcast. Race Center operates Australia's most advanced racing simulation. We provide dynamic racing experience for individuals and groups to race against each other in their custom-built full motion and triple screen surround sound simulators. Our simulators are the most advanced in Australia, giving motorsports fans the opportunity to experience the thrills of racing in a controlled and safe environment. We have worked with manufacturers to provide an ultra-realistic experience which is as totally immersive, absorbing, and fun. The result is something pretty spectacular, and as the champion V8 supercar Steve Johnson says, it's as close to the real thing as you can get. For more information, you can go to racecenter.com. Race Center, full motion and full throttle. We'll give you the GSRC finishing results tonight from Sonoma. Daniel Roper, as we mentioned, does come home on top of the pile tonight, taking home his second win in as many starts, and goes to the top of the race win total with the first multi-time winner on the year. He takes this one home over top of Alan Bose, who has to settle for second. Had it up until the white flag and comes home P2. Ricky Harden comes home in third. His teammates fourth and fifth with James Krahula and Tommy Ryan. A great showing for Unacceptable Racing. Jake Wright comes home in sixth position. It's a seventh for the 777, conveniently enough, of Austin S. Mathinson, first car, one lap down, rounds out your top 10.
And in 11th, Joe Branch brings it home tonight, and Rick Music comes in 12th. Tony Lurcock in 13th. Ian Adams, 14th. Jason Galvin, 15th tonight. Alfred Shepard finishes 16th. Made it tough on those guys towards the end. Ronald Hacker in 17th. Chris Lanini brings it home in 18th tonight. Dan Guerin in 19th. And Vincent Blumenthal, one lap down.
Saldo, winner from 2 weeks ago, comes home in 24th. It was a 25th position for Zach Troll. Mark Goodwin in 26th to 27th for Covey Moore. Justin Laxton comes home in 28th position. Did not really get a chance to start this race. 29th was Michael Gray, and Joe Hassert rounded out your top 30 in all of this one. And then as well, rounding out your field, 31st to Carl Burke and Mark Nobert with that 32nd place result. Do have one of the drivers from the top three caught up on the radio with us. Coming home third tonight was Ricky Harden in the 05, started sixth and gains 3 spots to finish on the bottom step of the podium. We've caught up with him and his Unacceptable Racing team down here into the pits in this one. And Ricky, first off, congratulations to you, a top 3 in this one after starting in 6th. We knew that car had speed, and I wasn't necessarily flashing it a lot in the practice session, 16th, but come home in a top 3 when it's all said and done. But the strategy was a big thing tonight, and we saw the 2 very different strategies come up to the forefront very late there. Daniel Roper taking 2, Alan Bose on 1 stop. Although they were 16 seconds ahead of you, your team takes out the rest of the top 5. Tell us how that went.
Man, that strategy just worked out very well for us. I knew we didn't have the speed to keep up with Roper or Bose, but we decided we'd go with the one-stop strategy, and I was practicing that in practice. That's why I was only 16th fastest. But, I was able to have a little bit more speed than my teammates, saving fuel, which just got me the podium spot. So I'm really, really thrilled about that. Those top 2 guys put on a heck of a show, and they were just so fast. So congrats to both of them.
You guys had the advantage of not having to pull double duty tonight on Wednesday, so a little bit of extra time to get the focus on the road course tonight. But you talked about how you were trying out that one-stop strategy there in the practice session, trying to see what kind of fuel mileage you guys were getting. Was it really much the game plan from the drop of the green flag that you knew you were going to take one, or were you guys kind of playing it by ear, seeing what those guys in front of you were doing, and that strategy maybe to a point was it or maybe a reactionary thing, or if they did something different, were you guys ever thinking about doing 2, or did you 3 go into this race because we saw you all come down pit road at the same time? You were all running together at the same time for the most part until you guys got split up there in that second half of the race. But was the one stop set in stone, or could that have flexed a little bit?
No, it was set in stone. We practiced it all week, and it was close. It's really hard to make that stretch, and in one of the practice races, I did it, to lap 17, and I said, all right, cool, we're good. And the second half, I burned too much, and I ran out. So, even with that pace lap on that first stint, you still have to save quite a bit on the second stint. So it was pretty interesting, but it worked great for us.
And the good news for you is one of the big storylines we were talking about coming into tonight's race is that we no longer going to be taking the top 20 from last season's points with this LionHeart IndyCar Series. So good news for you guys if you had a strong showing tonight like you did is that you are now officially inside the top 20 with a 14th place position in the points after tonight. That's a 10 position gain from where you guys entered tonight. And I know at least Tommy as well inside of the top 20. Evidently great news for you guys going forward.
Yep, absolutely. And I got to thank all the guys at Unacceptable Racing for the practice laps we put in, especially James Krahula. He kind of spearheads our effort over here, and he really puts a lot of laps in. So thank you to him. And, yeah, we've had a lot of bad luck throughout the season, especially me and Tommy dropping out there at the very end of that Homestead race. That killed him, and I've just been caught up in wrecks every single week. So it feels awesome to close one out.
Yeah, Krahula sits second in the points. You're up to a 14th position after tonight, and as well, Tommy Ryan going to be able to make the cut in 8th position. So now that the first big, I guess, cut line, we'll call it, on the year is out of the way, we still have 14 races to go. Now we have gotten our taste of road, and we still got a lot of oval to come on this season schedule. But you take a look at where you guys sit right now, 4 races in. What do you think maybe is the biggest takeaway from how you guys have started this year off and your goals for the next 14 races beginning next week at Richmond?
Yeah, I feel like we've been good. We've had a lot of speed everywhere we've gone. We've really gotten caught up in a lot of bad luck, and we've had a lot to learn with the aero package on these Indy cars. Obviously, they have a ton of aero push when you get behind somebody on the bigger speedways. So that's something we're learning and we're getting a little bit better at. And I think we're going to be stronger and stronger throughout the year. I think Unacceptable Racing will be a force to be reckoned with.
We definitely followed you guys through the field tonight. You start 6th, 5th, and 8th respectively amongst yourself, Krahula, and Tommy, and you guys come home 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Ricky, before we let you go, any other sponsors or shout-outs you want to thank when we got you here on the podium?
Yeah, thanks to GSRC and all the guys at LionHeart Racing. They put up a lot of practices throughout the week. With this bye week, we got a ton of them in, and it was a lot of fun. So appreciate everyone for all their efforts.
All right, well, again, congratulations, top 3. Congratulations to you guys for the top 5, but as well, you guys are going to be able to get yourselves locked in from here on out, so things going to be a little bit more calm as long as those results stay up. Again, congratulations. Thanks for taking a moment to talk with us, and hopefully we'll talk to you again at Richmond under some same circumstances.
All right, thank you, guys.
Again, your 3rd place finisher tonight, driving the 05 machine, that was Ricky Harden, comes home on the podium when it's all said and done and leads that spearhead of the Unacceptable Racing drivers who rounded out your top 5. Well, the driver that looked like he was going to get this one and the lead driver that comes home on the one-stop strategy, Alan Bose, in this race, just about had it to the white flag. In the end, he'll come home exactly 1 second off, and Sean Ambrose, you have caught up with the driver of the 21 car.
Well, I have caught up with Alan down here. First time I'm getting to talk to him this season. Alan, man, talk about that those last couple laps there, man. What a fight.
Yeah, that was pretty insane. When it comes to Dan and these cars, he sure has something figured out, and he's always been good at road courses. So I knew coming into this race I'd have to do something crazy to try to beat him, and if I would have thought about my strategy a little bit sooner, I probably could have stretched it an extra lap on the first run and kind of bit me in the second run because I had to back way off to make it. But I'll take the P2. It's definitely a lot better than what we've done so far this season. So a P2 feels like a win at this point.
Watching you guys go through those turns there in the last couple laps there, side by side, not making any contact, showing just the utmost respect for each other, and still there was a moment there when you threw down the power coming off the turn. I really thought that was it. I thought that was a nail in the coffin, and then he outbrakes you there coming down the straight and into the little switchback there, and man, I'll tell you, that was something else. What a great race.
Yeah, it was a fantastic race. We were talking about that after the race. I'm really not sure how he made that stick, but kudos to him. He definitely drove a lot harder of a race there at the end than I did, and you got to give him all the credit for that because he's just
great run tonight. You're heading to obviously a totally different track, 3/4 mile, D-shaped oval. We know you're a hot shoe and how great you are. I mean, you like your chances at Richmond? Are you going to be able to make the race? You're going to be able to keep this going?
Well, I certainly hope so. As far as I know, clear for next week to race. So I haven't been as good on ovals this season as I'd like to be. Probably going to put a little bit more practice down at Richmond to see if I can continue this hot streak, and hopefully we'll be able to get at least a top 3 to maintain our points position.
Yeah, well, at this point it is all about maintaining that points position. I mean, there's a lot of races left to go. Evan was talking about it before, 14 of them, and it all starts with Richmond next week. Again, just what a great race tonight. We'll be off the road courses for a while, but your oval program, it can't be that bad.
It could be better. I'll leave it at that. It could be a lot better.
Well, I'm sure you'll put in the time, and you'll be ready next week. Who would you like to thank for tonight's effort?
I'd like to thank Dead Zone Racing for just giving me support this tonight. Jonathan Goke, he definitely motivated me to do this race. I didn't really feel like doing it, but he talked me into it, and I'm very glad about that because of the finish. Dan Roper, got to thank him too. He raced me very cleanly at the end of the race, and multiple times in that last lap, things could have gone horribly wrong for the both of us. So glad that ended up okay, and got to thank Cheez It for being on the car. I think my Indy car looks pretty cool. And I got to thank you guys for putting on a great broadcast.
One last thing before I let you go, and this happened early in the race, and I didn't catch what happened. How did you bend up the car there in the early stages of the race?
When we went up the hill into turn 1 or 2, I got caught up with a lap car, and I barely avoided him and went out in the grass. So I think we made a little bit of contact right there. I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty sure that's how it happened.
Didn't really affect the handling on the car too much?
It made it a little bit tighter, surprisingly, but other than that, it was pretty much the same.
Well, obviously you put it together and you made it work, and you come home with a second-place finish. No complaints there. We look forward to seeing you in Richmond, my friend. Travel safe, and we'll see you next week.
Yep, thank you.
All right, Evan, I think you've caught up with our race winner, maybe down there in the virtual victory lane.
And absolutely, for the second time in as many starts, it's going to end the way he wanted it to. The number 6 Silhouette Daniel Roper starts on pole position, comes home on the top spot, and you might think it would have been an easy trip there, but it was very far from so. At points, it was a gap of 20 seconds. At the end, it was just 1 as he goes on to take the GSRC Sonoma 75. Daniel, congratulations, showing off your new ride. Said you wanted to go 2 for 2, and you did exactly that, but it was not without a late race battle. The pit strategy, the big thing tonight, everybody behind you on a one-stop strategy. The lone wolf that makes the two-tire strategy, rather, 2 trips down pit road. You got her topped off their late work, and you come home with the win, but it was not easy. Well, first off, before we talk about the strategy, the idea behind that, tell us what happened there after 2 to go. You go to the inside, Bose fights back, and that second time you wouldn't be denied.
Yeah, we actually we made a little bit of contact coming out of that first hairpin. Just got a little loose, both of us did, and we just kind of met in the middle. And at that point, I was like, you know what, I'm going to throw it down into this thing. If I make it, I make it. If not, I finish second. And luckily, I was able to get the car slowed down.
And then it all works out for the better. We talked to the unacceptable racing drivers who come home 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Alan Bose as well on the same fuel strategy as they did. He ran out to corner number 2 after the checkered flag flew, so he was about 200 yards to the good. That the 2-stop call, that was pretty much the outcast as far as what the strategy went tonight. You guys had a practice race last night, and a lot of drivers had a chance to play around with that. But so far, everybody we talked to, they said they came into this race knowing they were going to do that one-stop strategy, and they were locked in on that choice. Did you come in knowing that you were going to go for 2, or did you take a look back at the field at about lap 14 and then decide that with the gap you had, it was the best option, or did you really commit to that before the start of this and you knew that's what you were going to execute?
Well, I mean, you can ask pretty much everybody. I've been complaining about the fact that we couldn't make it on one stop the whole week. So, I don't know, I had quite a bit of pace over the whole week, so I just figured, you know what, hopefully I have enough pace to be able to get a big enough lead in between stops to be able to do it on 2, because I am absolutely the worst at saving fuel. So for me to try to save fuel, I probably would have just crashed myself out anyway. So I figured just go for 2 and see what happens.
Well, I tell you what, good news for you is that, through these first 4 races, the big goal for a lot of these drivers was that they wanted to be able to get into the top 20 in points to get locked in. In 2 starts, you're third in the championship standing and just 10 points behind the leader. So 2 less starts than Jake Wright, James Corhula, and those 2 wins, which makes you the first multi-time winner on the year, allows you to be just 10 points back. With that limited schedule that you're going to be running, you might have to win every time to be able to stay in that conversation. What's your thoughts on that aspect of things?
Yeah, it goes both ways, I guess. When I look at the standings and see I only have 2 starts, I'm kind of like, well, I could be leading this thing probably by quite a little bit if I would have done all the races. But I've already used up my 2 drops, but I should be around for the next few races, which I'm really excited about.
So then we turn our eyes to those next 2 races. You guys have an off week this last time by, so everybody got to hang out and relax a little bit. We go right back into the grind of the year after our first road course event. We go to 2 ovals, and they are very different. We're going to be going to Richmond in 1 week's time, and then after that, we go to Pocono Raceway. 2 very different racetracks, 2 very different personalities to them. What's the game plan going into those ones?
Richmond's a bit of a funny character. I actually did some laps there last weekend with or last week, I should say, when they went there for the fixed series. I think I had like the 5th fastest lap overall for the week. Richmond, I'm not too worried about pace-wise. We'll see how it races. I imagine the aero push is going to be quite bad there. And Pocono is just huge. There's going to be a lot of drafting, a lot of passing. I really don't think you'll see someone stretch out to a huge lead like we saw in previous races, because the draft down the straightaway will overcome the aero push you get out of the corner. So that one will be really interesting.
I feel like interesting is a good word to as well describe, if not thrilling, the end of this one. You stuck to your strategy and you fought back. It looked like at a point there that maybe some of those guys way up in front of you were going to be able to make it the distance. Jake Wright, Austin Espity, not the case. Alan Bowes was the target. A good side-by-side fight down in that back half of the racetrack, kept things clean, is something that Alan complimented you on. You guys were able to race that hard and avoid any major contact, and then somehow, I don't know if it was the fresh tires or what, but turn 9, threw it in there. You got the job done, and you did not look back, Daniel. Second time you've raced, second time you've been at Victory Lane, and second time we've talked to you. So as always, sponsors and shout-outs. Who are the good people behind the scenes that can power this 61 machine to Victory Lane?
Yeah, all my teammates at Dead Zone Racing, like Alan mentioned before, Jonathan Goke, getting me into this car. Alan, of course, for racing me clean. OEM Metrics, sponsor on the car. Everyone just makes this possible. And, it's always fun being on TeamSpeak with Alan, talking to each other during the race. And it was quite a nice conversation we had those last 2 laps while brawling with each other.
Well, for your sake, again, hopefully we'll be talking with you the next time we see as you try to go 3 for 3 in 1 week's time at Richmond International Raceway. But Daniel, again, congratulations on your win tonight, and best of luck going forward. You're 2 for 2. Hopefully we'll see you run good again next week.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Again, it is your race winner tonight in the GSRC Sonoma 75. Daniel Roper, second start. Sean Ambrose, and second trip to Victory Lane.
Man, what a race by Roper. I keep thinking about that battle we saw there at the end. That was that was a classic one. That's going to be one to remember for the rest of this season. These guys threw down a great race tonight. Lots of cars finished. Yeah, we had some trouble there at the finish, and there was a little bit of attrition early, but just about everybody did a really good job of being patient and staying out of the way for the leaders, and we didn't really see the type of carnage that you might see on a track like this. Again, it's easy to stack up here. When you start 32 cars, man, there's just a lot going on. High-speed track and lots of turns to navigate. We saw a great race tonight. Hats off again to our winner, Mr. Roper there. Good job for him. I just hope he can make next week's race.
And those drivers that are going to be able to make next week's race have shuffled up, because now 4 races down, we no longer go by the 2015 Season 1 points. We're going to be going by the current championship standings, which means that everybody from the top of the pile outside of tonight, including championship points leader Jake Wright, down to 20th Michael Gray, despite the unfortunate finish for the 888 tonight, are all locked in. So keep an eye on that LCQ and the drivers that have to go through the LCQ qualifying, and we'll be sure to talk about that in these next couple of weeks. You have to pay attention to some of the names down there, because that could be very exciting. We talked about strategy at the start of the night. It was strategy that dictated not how this race would end, but how it would set up for the finish, and it was all said and done. Teammates go hard at it. They keep it clean, and that's exactly how you want to see a race finish. Daniel Roper wins yet again over top of Alan Bowes. No week to sit off because we'll be back at it just in 1 week's time for round 5 of the championship. Before we go there, though, do need to wrap things up tonight for the virtual Sonoma Raceway. Sonoma, think outside the oval. Do need to thank our presenting sponsor, Overdrive Graphics. The LionHeart IndyCar Series, the premier American Open Wheel Championship on iRacing, is proudly presented by Overdrive Graphics. Overdrive Graphics providing high-quality paint schemes, posters, t-shirt designs, hero cards, and more for drivers on the sim. You can put your car into overdrive with a design from Overdrive Graphics. You can go to overdrivegraphics.com, as well on social media at facebook.com/overdrivegraphics or on Twitter at overdrivegrfx. Due to thank all the people on our end of things that allow us to bring our live coverage to you week in and week out. iRacing.com, Motorsport Simulations LLC, XSplit, the Audio Technica Corporation, and Aver Media USA. Do want to thank the LionHeart administration team, George Ansaldo, Joe Hassert, Justin Laxton, Tony Lurcock, and everybody else behind the scenes who put up practice sessions throughout the week for allowing the competition level to be so tight in this series. Additional thanks as always go to Dougie Beard, who provides us with our camera sets and music, which is provided by Eric Ekholm and Casey Lalonde. Their information is up on the screen. Give them a shout, let them know that you appreciate what they do for Sport and GSRC, and give them some love as well. But if you want more sim racing throughout the week, stay up to date with the Global Sim Racing Channel online at globalsimracingchannel.com, as well on our Twitter, that's at GSR Channel, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Global Sim Racing Channel. You see a lot of the upcoming races throughout the next couple of weeks to be going up on your screen here in just a minute. Sean, but the big one that we want to know about is round 5 in the LionHeart IndyCar Series schedule. That's going to be at Richmond next Wednesday night.
Yes, we are going to head to Richmond International Raceway for the Chicago Fire Department Heroes 150. That's right. We're going to be supporting the men in red there next Wednesday night, and we're going to head to Richmond International Raceway, 3/4 mile D-shaped asphalt track right there in Henrico County. Henrico or Henrico? I'm not sure, Evan. You may know that a little bit better than myself, but awful fast track. Some really, really classic Indy races there from years back, the IRL ran there, and when they did, it was always an exciting race. I expect to see the same brand of racing when we get there next week. They're going to be wheel to wheel, and it's going to be an interesting race because it doesn't take long to get around that 3/4 mile in this DW12, and those guys are going to be scrapping it up and. I think we will maybe even see a little bit of paint exchanged between side pods next week. It's going to be a fun one to watch. Please do not miss this race. Richmond will be pivotal, especially now with now we're past that 4th race, and as you talked about earlier, we hit that part of the season now where everybody, the top 20 is reshuffled now. So, it's going to be a good one. I can't wait to get there under the lights next week at Richmond.
We saw how interesting Under the Lights at Iowa was. We saw how exciting the road courses are going to be throughout the season. If tonight is any indication, Richmond is going to be exciting nonetheless. That's Wednesday, August the 26th. We go live at about 10:45 p.m. Eastern Time, a little bit before that for the GSRC pre-race show. That again is round 5 in the LionHeart IndyCar Series presented by Overdrive Graphics, the CFD Heroes 150. Until then, though, that wraps things up tonight from Sonoma. Do want to thank everybody for tuning in, and on behalf of the broadcast crew tonight, alongside of myself, Evan Pasoko, for Sean Ambrose, I'm Jed Yaman, and everybody else behind the scenes here at GSRC and at the LionHeart IndyCar Series. Thank you so much for tuning in. Congratulations to Daniel Roper, winner tonight in the GSRC Sonoma 75. He takes home his 2nd win on the year and becomes the first multi-time winner in the 2015 Season 2 campaign. Until next time, good night from Sonoma, California. We'll see you next Wednesday night from the Commonwealth of Virginia.